Cyberpunk 2077 is probably doing the best it has been since release, as the average daily player count is the healthiest it has ever been. Hopefully you are doing well, chooms, happy 2025, and let's begin the year by going through what made Cyberpunk 2077 retain its player base as well as expand it, and how updating and supporting the game will almost always pan out well for your company as people appreciate it. So it's no secret that Cyberpunk had a rough launch initially, and being though that has been covered extensively by the internet, all the time, I wanted to focus on the post-launch time. As you see, CDPR updating the game was probably the best possible option to reassure people that they won't abandon their game, and I'm glad they did. This was also a business move. You see, they wouldn't pour in $125 million in post-launch for nothing, as time and time again it was shown that if you take care of your games and your audience, especially for free as much as you can, people will return the favor and play your game and have a positive opinion about it. No Man's Sky is always the example being brought up, although even though similar, they were in different situations, but ultimately it encompasses the bigger situation in the gaming industry today. You see, releasing your games in this day and era, especially in this climate, can be tricky, as social media driven discussion and, let's say, mainstream gaming media can paint a positive and negative image of your game. As you know, PR is the hardest thing to navigate today. One wrong step and you will be spending more time repairing your image of your company than building up your brand. So when a company is highly regarded in the gaming community as CDPR, who, released The Witcher 3, comes out with something problematic, which was hit or miss depending on the platform you played it on, it sends out a negative message. Game being removed from PlayStation Store was also that big hit, as these things don't happen often, and once they do, you will see those news everywhere. So your regular Joe who is looking for the next big game to play, keep in mind this person doesn't really go and look into the biggest intricacies of the video game industry. They see that and they go like, oh well, I guess I won't be buying that, regardless of the quality of the game, which I tested to multiple times in my reviews, as well as pointing out issues that at this point have mostly been resolved. So if CDPR didn't update this, you would have bad press moving into The Witcher 4, which is something that can actually completely liquidate the company, because look, CDPR back then I think didn't have war chest as big as today, so when you spend so much money on production and don't make it back, you have to scale back, which is tough for CDPR, as I think their dream is to really become this powerhouse, releasing more titles and IPs closer to each other to have a consistent release timeframes. And they are getting to it now, as you have multiple projects in development, although their production phases are still cascaded, as biggest focus is on The Witcher 4, while other teams are working on Cyberpunk sequel, Hadar, which is their new IP, and the new Witcher game from the Molasses Flood. The reason why I say this is that because this wouldn't be possible if they didn't navigate Cyberpunk release well. I mean, one of the biggest pluses for them is that regardless of how it was released, Cyberpunk 2077 sold incredibly well on release. They got to work and started fixing it up, which lasted up until patch 1.6, which served as a last push to make the game work well across all systems. And the overall game got better in that process, as for example, you are now running a game which across most platforms, including PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, was running decently well. But they also, I think, knew that there was so much potential that this game could achieve, and they started working on it. Because CDPR, I think, saw the cross-promotion which happened after the first season of The Witcher on Netflix came out, and The Witcher 3 numbers rose to heights never seen since release, so basically The Witcher 3 got another release after all of those years because so many people got back into the game. So what do? Well, they go and strike a deal with Netflix and Trigger to make an anime. And as Studio Trigger was a smart choice, they do. A show which goes viral pretty much and becomes one of the highest rated, most beloved anime series, which they combined with the Edge Runners update that included some items from that anime. Plus, people had some issues to resolve with Adam Smasher and all of that, and on top of that, the game was in a very good state, and slowly but surely you had more and more people playing it. But then they did update 2.0, which changed a lot of systems the game had, and included a refurbished formula that worked a lot better as you play, in both how you level up and what sort of abilities you have, to mix and match for your ideal V. And on top of that, most of these skills and perks were changed to actually complement that playstyle. They fixed the police, being able to be chased by cops now, having MaxTag do their own little animation. That was all something which was lacking from the game, but after all of these years, it's finally in it and it's working great. Phantom Liberty also did really well, as it made a lot of people return to it, and as the game minimized bugs and glitches, people saw the full potential of Cyberpunk that I have been talking about, as the story is the same, but having better systems around that story, especially gameplay systems, made everyone appreciate it more and connect with characters. But even after 2.0, they started pumping out updates that included new features that elevated how you played the game, also including some requested features, although even today one of the biggest requests I get in my comments is New Game Plus, and that's not going to be happening for this game. And as the positive word got out, daily amount of players went up, and besides that, modding community went wild, creating a vibrant community which lasts even to this day, with mod usage becoming bigger and bigger with each year, and now it's sitting at the 5th place on Nexus Mods with over 500 million downloads and 13,000 uploaded user-generated mods. Of course, only surpassed by Fallout and Skyrim, but that's to be expected, as those are really behemoths of the modding community. But in any case, it showed devs that people really care about this game and want to provide user-generated content to it. So CDPR, if you're watching, consider modding tools like for The Witcher 3. It will help maintain the game until sequel comes out, which will be a while, and ultimately I think all the money invested into it will return through new sales, as some wild mod packs comes out, or maybe some crazy mod releases and people go back into the game, because those things have been happening before. Whenever you have a huge mod overhaul for a game or something big happens in that scene, game does regain more players. I mean, imagine having full-on quests and missions, including Cyberpunk multiplayer framework, which is in development by the way, and they're making really good progress on it. The possibilities of that are endless if supported by both sides. Look at 5M and what it achieved for GTA and roleplay in general. Now, of course, when it comes to Cyberpunk, it started out as a pen and paper role-playing game, so creating something like this with proper modding tools would be easier and also I think serve the game. And now also, as Cyberpunk review-wise is doing better than ever, it gave CDPR pretty much a clean slate for their next title, and this era of Red Engine can be left without any regrets. I mean, having smooth gameplay, better combat encounters, as well as activities to do around the city really show the full strength of Night City and this design choice. This is also an important lesson, as in the future, and I will always say this, if there are issues with their next game, people will bring this back. It's always going to happen, but this was trial by fire, which you can learn a lot from. So hopefully they did, and basically what CDPR did with the post-launch Cyberpunk told me at least that they did learn a lot from it, and the release of The Witcher 4 will probably go as best as possible, but we cannot know that right now, being that, well, they're gonna be working in Unreal Engine 5, and well, this is gonna be their first title in Unreal Engine 5, so I hope that release is going to be smooth. I mean, they're not also showing signs of stopping updating Cyberpunk, as recently there was a new QA branch on SteamDB, although now this is set to private, as Valve actually added the option for devs to do it, from probably having people like me snoop around and make a video about it. So yes, we cannot see what's happening right now, but there is definitely a new patch coming out. Because there are new Nvidia GPUs coming out by the end of the month, so it will most likely include all of the latest features like DLSS 4, for Cyberpunk 2077, so honestly expect that update 1000%. There is also a new Cyberpunk project with Netflix and Cyberpunk live action movie, which will only strengthen the brand, and I think it will provide CDPR with enough cash flow for at least 3 more years until it probably reaches, market saturation. Although Witcher 3, even though old, is still selling incredibly well. So if you never really played Cyberpunk, I think this is the best time to do it, as most bigger updates are done, and as they continue to support the game, you will have fresh content coming every now and then. Also, they do sales like a lot of times, so if you don't want to pay the full price, just wait for a sale because they do them a lot. Now sadly, one sacrifice had to be made, and those were PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions, because you see, Update 2.0, Phantom Liberty and all of the following patches are only available on current gen consoles and PC, as there was no way for them to handle this game with more features, and having more stuff to render, I think your console would burst into flames. They were limited, and even though it sucks for all of the owners of those systems, it was either or that, because ultimately it proved to be a successful gamble. So that's why I recommend this game on current gen and PC, not on last gen. Although if you really want to play it and you only have like PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it's going to run decent, nothing crazy. Plus upgrade will be free later on for the base game in case you decide to buy PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X or S. And for the end, look, this is why you update and support your games. If you own it up, you get rewarded. And I think this is a valuable lesson to any company that does this, as I think next title, which will go, through this change, will also be Stalker 2, as GSC have been updating the game relentlessly and promises new stuff in this year, because Stalker also released with some issues, but over the past month and a half they have been fixing the game a lot, so yeah, this has been a trend. Of course, no one wants this to be a trend, release today, fix on later, but I think companies today really need to think through scale and development time, as not balancing this leads to issues which then become expensive to fix. Video games today are very complex as never before, so you have things that can go wrong very easily, and that oopsie can cost your entire company. Look at Ubisoft, a bunch of bad decisions are now leading them into the buyout, which I think will happen regardless of how Assassin's Creed Shadows does. Once you lose trust because you release, quadruple A titles that lead you nowhere, that's it, that's the industry of today, buyout or key in lock. So yeah, the point of this video was to show how mistakes can be navigated, and you can regain trust to the point where your games become alive and well years after release. Being that I follow this game since, its first teaser trailer, I was able to really break it down as I went through this journey with my videos and content over the years and pretty much saw it all. And that's it, chooms, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing for more, and tell me down below, what do you think about all of this? Check us out on Twitter and Discord, and huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters. And as always, stay classy, chooms, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye bye.